I was born and raised in the Bay Area, so we lived at the intersection between San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And what that felt like in some ways was the equivalent of being born on a treadmill. So the culture of achieving and striving and being more than the prior generation or prior generations felt hard-coded into me from really the beginning. It was pervasive in my life throughout high school, and there was always just a general sense of having to work really hard to prove whatever room I was in that I deserved to be there, to do better than any of my peers, to prove my identity, to prove my worthiness as a human being. And that pervaded into work culture for me. And my husband and I would have told anybody that our priorities were God and our spiritual lives and the life of our family. But if you looked at the way we spent our time and really the way we spent our money and the way we ordered our life around this need for things and this need for a lifestyle, those indicators would not have told the story that we were living a life led by our values. We worked a lot and we worked hard, and there was a lot of striving involved. And I can say partially that it was about money and things and maintaining a lifestyle of my peers, but also it was more than that. It was for some noble reasons too. It was to prove that the life that my parents had worked hard to give me, that I was worthy of it, that I was meeting those expectations. And so it came to a point, really, kind of in my early to mid-30s, when I was exhausted. I was spent, down to nothing. And my body physically felt it, and my mind felt it. I had 3 small children at the time, one of whom was a baby. And too many hours and too much heart and too much soul was going into what I was doing outside of my home, and I was just spent. So at that time, my husband and I decided that we need to make a pretty drastic life change. It needed to be an economic change too, so that maybe I could stay at home as a stay-at-home mom for the first time and catch my breath a little bit, because we were on a road toward not good things in our marriage and in our family. And so we made a huge move. We decided to leave the Bay Area and pack up and move this 5-bedroom home and all of the stuff in it to Arizona to try to achieve a more balanced life. So we pulled in with 2 semis, and it was 114 degrees that day, I kid you not. So we jumped out of the truck, we jumped out of, the moving van, and I packed up the 3 kiddos and my 15-year-old niece, and we said, let's go to the pool, like immediately. I was relaxed for maybe the first time in years, maybe the first time in my adult life. It was the first time that I did not have a job since I had been 15 years old. And I remember just floating and thinking, it's all gonna get better from here. My mom's pain's gonna be better here in the desert. My dad's pain's gonna be better here in the desert. I'm gonna be able to be with my children more the way I had dreamed but could never make happen economically. And just life is gonna get better. My relationship with my husband, there was gonna be more time to invest, and things were on a better trajectory. I felt I was hopeful for the first time in a long time. And I was floating in the pool. And I can remember just having my ears immersed and hearing the laughter of my kids and other kids having a good time. And a couple minutes passed and I was just floating. Probably about 8 minutes passed before I felt prompted to get up and do a head count. I counted 1 and then 2 of my daughters and didn't see the 3rd, and counted again 1 and 2 and then didn't see my 3rd daughter. And I yelled to my niece, who was across the pool, "Where's Franny?" And she was bewildered herself and just went like this. And in that moment, there was a knowingness inside me that something was very, very wrong. Franny was 3 at the time. And after what felt like many minutes passing, out of the corner of my eye, I could see her long dark hair floating and her body bobbing. So I got to her as fast as I could. It felt like it took a million years to get to her. and I lifted her body out of the water, and it was too heavy. And I thought my daughter was gone for sure. I held her in my arms. She was completely limp, and she was not breathing. And all I could do in that moment was to scream, Jesus, as a reflex. I did not know what to do. I couldn't even utter words to ask a person to call 911. A young lifeguard emerged. He was probably about 15 years old himself, and he was at a loss. He did not know what to do, and I just looked at him in that moment and said, look at me, you can do this. He started to try to revive her. It felt like many minutes had passed, but then there was a cough. After he did several chest compressions, there was a cough. And then there was another cough. And her eyes opened. And she sat up and looked at me. And in that moment, I thought for sure, my daughter is permanently brain damaged. Then she continued to look at me, and I continued to talk to her. And she said, Mommy. And a knowingness returned to her eyes. And she was there with me. The reason I share this story that is a mother's greatest shame is because of what happened to me after that period of time in my life. Gratitude awakened fully in my life from that day on. It was as if I was handed a pair of rose-colored glasses, and I had actual visibility into seeing the gift and all the gifts that were my life. After that point, it was like, as you can imagine, being brought back from that edge, everything good in my life became visible to me. And the drone beat of my heart shifted from please, 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 a low-grade dissatisfaction with everything and the striving and hustling for more, shifted gears into a thank you, thank you, thank you. And there was a profound gratitude that was awake in my life after that point. It was as if there was a heightened awareness in me at this point that no beautiful thing in my life was going to fall through the cracks without me savoring it and locking into every good thing that was my life. It changed mine and my husband's relationship because gratitude now was expressed in our home. The things that we had disagreed about before melted away. The minor fights about things, we had perspective now, so those things became very clear that they just weren't important anymore. Gratitude got constantly expressed in our marriage, and we created this ecosystem of gratitude in our home. And that's when we realized we need to institute a gratitude practice to keep this fresh, because it is a norm of human behavior that we revert to the old way of life. And sure enough, that low-grade dissatisfaction with life and that striving tries to creep back in. And that is the value of instituting the gratitude practice in our life, because it creates an ordering effect on the way we behave with not just the people around us, but our relationship with striving, and certainly with our relationship with money. It extends to that, because when we feel grateful and awake for the things that we have and the things that are around us, the things that are already in our path, and feeling the awareness of loving what we have and that it can't be better, has an effect on everything we do in this life, and certainly with a relationship with money and things and striving.